Good evening, and welcome to tonight's special presentation by the River Falls Public Library. It's part of a series of speakers on the issue of sustainability. My name is Bill Montgomery, retired Lutheran pastor and a member of our local organization known as Hope for Creation, and also a member of Hope Lutheran Church. Before I introduce our speaker, I'd like to invite all of you, our viewers, to attend the upcoming EarthFest 23 event. It's being held this year on Earth Day, Saturday, April 22nd, starting at 12 noon until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The festival is being held here in Glen Park in River Falls, and it's an open and free invitation and event to everyone, featuring food, music, activities for all ages, including a sustainability and wellness fair with over 80 exhibitors that have already registered. So please join us as we celebrate the past, the current, and the future sustainability efforts in order to inspire ongoing climate action. And we've added the theme of wellness this year. David Orr reminds us that when we heal the earth, we heal ourselves. I also want to thank our sponsors for this evening. First of all, the River Falls Public Library, who has hosted over 40 speakers in this sustainability series, including noted authors, Nobel Prize winners, our Wisconsin Lieutenant Governor, Tia Nelson, the daughter of Gaylord Nelson, the founder of the first Earth Day. And these presentations are all still available on this website. Other sponsors this evening are the University of Wisconsin River Falls Office of Sustainability, the City of River Falls Public Utilities, the River Falls Public School District, and many other organizations. And I'm happy to represent Hope for Creation, our local faith-based organization, working collaborative with a broad range of partners on the issues of climate change and sustainability challenges. So I want to again thank and welcome our viewers. Thanks for joining us. Please hold your questions until the end of the presentation, and your questions can be submitted on chat through Facebook and YouTube. Our speaker this evening is Dr. Larry Rasmussen, a renowned Christian environmentalist, ethicist, the Reinhold Niebuhr Professor of Social Ethics, now emeritus at Union Theological Seminary in New York City. As one of the world's foremost Christian environmental ethicists, Dr. Rasmussen has mentored a generation of Christians in eco-theology and green religion. He spearheaded the greening at Union Theological Seminary as an institution and rooted his courses and scholarship in the practice of environmental justice with communities and community leaders. He's published more than a dozen books, including the landmark award-winning Earth Community, Earth Ethics. He is currently directing a 10-year project on Earth honoring Christianity at Ghost Ranch in Abiquiu, New Mexico. A Minnesota native, Larry studied at St. Olaf College, Luther Theological Seminary, received his Doctor of Theology from Union Theological Seminary. After teaching at St. Olaf College and at Wesley Theological Seminary in Washington, D.C., he was appointed Professor of Social Ethics at Union Theological Seminary, and he served as co-moderator of the Justice, Peace, Creation Unit of the World Council of Churches from 1990 to the year 2000. It's my honor and pleasure to welcome you, Larry, to speak about your newest book, The Planet You Inherit, Letters to My Grandchildren, When Uncertainty's a Sure Thing. I wish you could be here, but we're delighted that you're appearing virtually from your home in New Mexico. So in this newest book, you speak across two generations to your grandchildren about the future of climate change, about global citizenship, democracy, and legacy. So Larry, I'm delighted to introduce you to the River Falls community. And in the interest of full disclosure for our audience, you and I first met when we were both students at St. Olaf College, Northfield, Minnesota. And who could have imagined that back in those days, we'd be meeting tonight this way, some 66 years later. So Larry, welcome, and please introduce yourself and your newest book to our community.
Thank you, Bill.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, Bill didn't tell you he was my counselor when I entered St. Olaf College. So this is a great pleasure. We haven't seen each other for decades. And so it's great to be a part of this and to be a part of your rather renowned series. I'm going to spend just a bit of time showing off the grandkids, and I'll start with a story. I am not writing further letters. The book is made up of 22 letters to our biological grandchildren. That's 2, but the book is dedicated to 7 grandchildren because 5 of them are what we call our bonus grandkids. They call us Grandma and Grandpa. In most cases, one or other of their parents lived with us while going to school, and then later when they had kids, we became Grandma and Grandpa to them. So we say we have 7, but 2 of them are our biological grandkids, and they are the 2 to whom the letters are written. But first, let me tell you a story. I'll get writing again and write more letters to the grandchildren. The book was never in view, actually. I just wrote a sheaf of letters, and then there was an acquisitions editor that read some of them and said, let's make a book of this. But I have as many more as are in the book, and I will continue writing. Our younger one, Martine, whom I call Spud, is 4, almost 5, and he's trying to figure out this living and dying business. The topics in the book are all big topics, and that's another big one. It is for him as a youngster, and it is for Nyla, and for me, we're octogenarians. We think about our mortality too. But a few weeks ago, Martine said to his mother, "Mommy, are you going to die?" And Lena said, "Yes, but not for a very long time. Can I die with you?" And she said, "Oh, how sweet." Then he turned to his dad and he said, "Dad, when you die, can I have your watch?" So I'm thinking about willing my watch to Martine or to Spud sooner, so that he doesn't sit around waiting for his dad to die in order to get his watch. So let me show you the grandkids, and then we can. There's Nyla, Grandma Nyla, and here's Liv, who's the oldest one now. She's 16. We're having a serious conversation there. I'm not sure what it's about. I'm having a little book party at Union and Columbia in a couple of weeks, and she's going to read some of her poetry at that event. On the left are Eduardo and Martine, the 2 recipients of the letters. And then on the right here is Asher. He's one of 3 in Austin, Texas. Your sisters are there, Camille and Maddie, and their dad lived with us while he was going to Columbia University. This is Liv at an earlier age. And here's Martine, or Spud. He's only 2 here and about 4 there. Eduardo, the older, and here are the 2 of them together. I don't know, on a hike somewhere in the Poconos, I think. They live in Brooklyn. Liv doing some work. Our grandson, John Asante Harris, and he and I are walking. He had to have a walking stick because I had a walking stick. So there we are. Okay, what I'll do is I will read the author's note. It's only 3 paragraphs. It'll give you the framework for all of the letters. And then I will read excerpts from just 2 of them. The first one you see on the screen here, it's the first letter, and it's to Eduardo. But let me read the author's note. I knew my grandchildren confronted the harrowing challenge of moving from industrial to ecological civilization. The Great Transition, it's called. Epic times. I was ready for that. But my pen was startled to discover a truth that has taken us by stealth, that for the first time ever, humanity's become a geological force. We've slid off the back end of one geological epoch, the late Holocene, onto the front end of another, the Anthropocene, the age of the human. Thus, we face epoch times, or epochal times, as well as epic times, and a further daunting transition. These transitions are the great work, that's a Thomas Berry phrase, that awaits my grandchildren. Though they were never asked, didn't get a vote, remapping and remaking the world amidst uncertainty is their calling, as it is ours. While their world cannot be ours and should not be, I wanted to just step back from an academic career teaching social ethics and just write love letters that face what they face on a changed and changing planet. I'm certain the letters are urgent, not because the kids' grandparents are frail, but because their world is. That's the end of the note, and that's the frame of the book. The two geological epochs that framed their lives and have framed ours and have framed all of human civilizations, actually, in the Holocene. It doesn't, the note doesn't give you any of the many stories in these love letters or convey the tone and the mood. It doesn't trace the themes and doesn't let you in on much of the humor either. So just for a taste, I'll read two excerpts. One from the first letter to Eduardo, and then the last letter to both of the boys. As you can see on the screen, the first one starts before COVID, January 15, 2018. Dear Eduardo, this is a love letter, but not the usual. Of course, your grandma Nyla and I, along with your abuelos in Colombia, match doting grandparents anywhere. Our affection lacks nothing. Yet this is the very first love letter in the whole history of love that consciously sends love from grandparents in one geological epoch to a grandchild in another, from the late Holocene to the early Anthropocene. That's weird. It's also important because the Anthropocene is the time of your life, while the Holocene is the time of ours. To us, this language is strange, but probably not to you if you are reading this as a young adult. Now you're a preschooler, so I expect you won't read this for many years. Unlike us, you will experience the tumultuous changes that straddle a new geological epoch. While human history and human experience was our main subject, Earth science and planetary experience will likely be yours. Our human drama is a drama as a chapter in Earth's drama, and Earth's drama is a chapter in the galaxies. We belong to the journey of the universe. We're part of the journey of the universe. That's both sound science, Eduardo, and your identity. Your origins are literally stellar. The calcium in your teeth, the iron in your blood, and the gold of a wedding band you might someday wear are all gifts of exploding stars, supernovae. Indeed, every one of the 94 natural elements found on Earth was created in the cores of distant stars and then blasted into space, where gravity assembled them into galaxies and solar systems. Did you know that the grace of star death funded your life and that you were stardust before you were Earth stuff? It literally takes a universe to raise a child. You, the little brother you tell us is swimming in your mommy's tummy, and all your friends, ancestors, pet turtles, and progeny. The Crow nation knew this. We love the stars, and the stars love us back. That's the way to sing the song of life. What I most want for you and your baby brother is that you let yourselves be overwhelmed by wonder, and lose yourself in the kaleidoscope of creation, not to escape this harsh world, but to better inhabit it. But I awoke this morning to write of your geological epoch and mine. I suspect you already know from school and your smartwatch that Holocene means the holy, W-H-O-L-L-Y, the holy recent epoch, ours, while Anthropocene, yours, means the age of the human, from anthropos, Greek for human. God only knows why all geologists speak Greek. It's hopelessly nerdy. Let me get here. It's hopelessly nerdy to include a graph. What love letter features a science graph? Follow the line for the last 11,000 years, here to here. 11,000 to 0, the late Holocene, and then you see the line goes almost straight up. The variation in those 11,000 years is less than 1 degree Celsius, 1.7 degrees Fahrenheit above the baseline, to less than 1 degree below it. This small 2 degrees Celsius difference is rare in Earth's history. Look how erratic the line was before it flattens. Earth is normally fickle. Here's the kicker. The grammar of the epoch that has hosted every single human civilization to date, bar none, is climate stability. Uncommon stability, generating a riot of life. And it's coming to an end. It has come to an end with dramatic global warming. Okay, the letter continues for a while about what's happening to the planet, and then the letter ends with this. So I'm skipping pages now and finishing this first letter to Eduardo. My dear child, I must break off for today, though not before a confession. It turns out that Grawemeyer, I, and our ancestors lived our whole lives by a single fatal premise. We assumed that what was good for us would be good for the world, as Wendell Berry put it. We were wrong. For the rest of my days, I will puzzle how it came to pass on our watch that the Holocene morphed into the Anthropocene and we left you a diminished planet. How is it that the order of creation's well-being as primary and human well-being as always derivative was flipped? How is it that our imprint is now so deep and dangerous that we are not only the ark, but the flood? How is it that we miss the obvious? That it's suicidal to live our lives at the expense of planetary life, and that planetary life is all we have. The fault lies with our powers, I'm pretty sure, and the myths they serve. the myth of human centrality, the myth of our separation from nature, and the myth that we control what we create so as to render history as progress. We've lived them with such ardor we forgot they were myths. Many live them with grasping determination still, yet none is true. I truly did not sit down to write you a letter like this. I had in mind something lighthearted, as love letters can be, and something adventuresome, like young people opening a door at the back of the closet onto a new world. Oh well, next time. I promise more joyful things and some good stories. Graham and Isla and I send all our love. Te amo, Grandpa. Okay, then just a word before the other letter. The letters all try to face what the grandkids face as one geologic epoch comes to an end and another emerges, in which uncertainty becomes our new home. How do we and the kids lean into uncertainty as a sure thing? I'll jump to the end and read the very last letter, leaving a legacy. It doesn't include the laughs of the intervening letters, much less does it line out the spirituality that I think is needed to face and even cherish our times. Nor does this last letter pick up our public life in the way some of the letters do, like a couple letters on democracy, endangered democracy, enhanced democracy, letters on race and caste, letters on economy and class, letters on how we might live with both social and biological collapse. Nor does it discuss our responsibility and how to think about that now. So I'm inviting you to have a look at those letters. But this last letter will still let you feel the way that all of the letters kind of bend. So leaving a legacy, and this is written during the pandemic, April 4th, 2021. Dear Eduardo, dear Martine, these are love letters from first to last. In the very first one, love bridges geological epochs. Spud hadn't made his grand entrance yet, so that letter is only to you, Eduardo, but you told us that he was on his way swimming in Mommy's tummy. This one, to both of you, will end the same, with love bridging from our world to yours. Despite that love, or because of it, writing has been wrenching at times. Why should you be saddled with a global civilizational challenge amidst a geological shift in a no-analog world? Unexpected crises made the letters difficult. The planet's physical tumult and social chaos began to feel like the loss of worlds that African and indigenous peoples have long experienced. Somehow, they had to survive loss of their civilizations and land, only to begin again on alien terrain. While the world did not end, some worlds did. Their worlds did. Now, that's reality for even more than the colonized. The outcome is a stack of uncharted challenges and the need for a different great work. If there's a humorous version, it's Pogo's, the cartoonist character. Quote, what we face, friends, are insurmountable opportunities. End of quote. Mm-hmm. Insurmountable opportunities. What's the rigging for those? It includes radical honesty. The early Anthropocene is already baked in to such an extent that our world will not escape immense suffering. Together with displaced peoples, flora, and fauna, nor will compromise and defeat be avoided. Wild cards guarantee uncertainty as the one sure thing. Big, complex, interacting systems determining futures that you cannot control will ratchet up risk, frustrate the best of intentions, and assure failures. Life always dishes up more than we can plan for, and some of it comes out wonderfully good, but some of it does not. In any case, all of it mandates radical realism. James Baldwin is right again. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. All this takes a toll, and the toll is greater, not less, when remaking the world is your calling and you love what you are doing. That's love's cruel side. Pain, loss, and responsibility are more poignant when you care. Don't push away the pain, accept it. It's not there by accident. It's a life imperative. On the other side is healing and new resolve. President Barack and Michelle Obama were in Oslo in 2009 to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. The president was coming off a very difficult time in the White House, agonizing over ongoing wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. He would return to that and much more, not least an impasse on healthcare legislation and the Great Recession. As the Obamas were about to leave their hotel for the Nobel dinner, one of the American delegation knocked on the door and told them to look out the window. They opened the drapes, and there were several thousand people, each holding a candle. That's the traditional ritual for the city to salute the Peace Prize recipient. When the Obamas appeared, the crowd cheered wildly. Here, amidst the president's preoccupation with agonies that wouldn't pause, was a pool of stars, held aloft by those who refused to give up on the idea that the world could be better. President Obama's response to himself was, "Whatever you do won't be enough," I heard their voices say. "Try anyway." Obama did not achieve everything he wanted to, but oddly, failure while trying anyway is a fine criterion. If what you want to do with your tombstone dash, the dash on your tombstone between your date of birth and your date of death, if what you want to do with your tombstone dash isn't big enough to risk failure and multiple tries, some of which will fail, then your vision and your goal are too humble, too shallow, too unworthy of your one wild and precious life. So accept the wisdom that because remapping and remaking is civilizational work in a no analog world, whatever you do will not be enough. It cannot be. If nothing else, your lives, however long, will not be long enough. You belong to a vital transitional generation, but that's not the generation that slaps the final coat of enamel on the wall or spit polishes shoes for the victory dance. Do you recall my response to Reinhold Niebuhr and James Baldwin about race reckoning? That, they said, it still needed a century? My generation's idealism was dashed by that prospect. We thought we could solve all problems within our own lifetime. But the two of them waded in with renewed energy. To them, a century of good work for undoing legacies as deep as race and caste seemed hopeful and realistic. So take your first steps and make your way, knowing others will build more cairns. The stones will keep talking. Still, my generation's impatience was right in one way. It's vital to dream an ideal world and go big with confidence. Especially the young often get things done because they didn't know they couldn't. Impossible gets nudged into the possible column. So dream a world and lace it with a little utopia. That's a world that levels the standard of living with a steady state economy attentive to Earth's regeneration. That's a world of jobs and healthcare for all in need of them, a world where the quality of life for household and community are the economy's purpose and focus, not the profits of big firms and corporations. A world of widespread public transportation in and between green cities, a world of clean renewable energy sources, a world of diets low in the use of animals, a world where spiritual well-being replaces gaudy consumerism, a world where diversity plays out as strength, not inequity, and where colonialist and environmental debt is settled with reparations on the way to liberty and justice for all. A world attentive to the whole community of life and its glory, with Homo sapiens present neither as devils nor divines, but the world's true wonder. And not least, a world full of music. While music cannot cure everything, with it, you can sing down the grimness in front of you. Add your dreams to these, with Dr. King's beloved community in view and Amanda Gorman in your ears. Quote, "One thing is certain," she said, "if we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright." Yours is certainly not a moment for caution. Toss it and resist the advice of those who say, never try anything the first time around. It's fine to start small and to get help. In the raised bed on your deck, I've seen you sow seeds as tiny as the little black poppy seeds on your favorite bagel. Next, you tend the fresh green roots, then you do some weeding. That's only a start, I know. You push the door shut. But it's enough. It's enough in that it's a microcosm of the future. As little, so big. And it's enough in that you're joining multitudes of great workers who, taking responsibility for their own seed beds, join you. A word to Benjamin from A Canticle for Leibowitz could go on your wall. Quote, "To sense your responsibility is wisdom, Benjamin. To think you can carry it alone is folly. You need not, cannot carry it alone, and you shouldn't try. But action is indispensable. To take action is the antidote to Anthropocene anxiety, anxiety that otherwise slips into depression. Through it all, don't forget the paradox you are. Our past shortcomings and mistakes, some of them doozies, are real. Blemished is who we are, and you will be too. Yet magnificence is yours as well. Grawemeyer Island's favorite prayer has it right. "Oh God, help me to believe the truth about myself, no matter how beautiful it is." We can tell you how beautiful it is. Spud was in his crib, supposedly on his way to sleep, but jabbering on, now with the complete sentences that come when a 2-year-old is ambling toward 3. Your dad was nearby, but Martin was in his own world and said to no one in particular, "I love Grandpa so much." We should all believe such unsolicited truth about ourselves, no matter how beautiful it is. And on our better days, we do. You've heard me say that my worldview is one of tragedy. Yet life with Nyla is graced at every turn, and never have I felt so much gratitude or satisfaction as I do now. Tragedy sits alongside a deeply felt conviction that the existence of the universe is utterly astonishing, with life a miracle. I love Emily Dickinson's line, "To live is so startling it leaves little time for anything else." Life's miracle and mystery brings serenity and surprise. Thus does my tragic view partner with the somewhat unexpected giddy love of life, or rather, a giddy love of unexpected life. Is it different for you? I close with a rabbi, then add to Grandma's poem a favorite one of mine and some wisdom from earlier. Love gets the last word all around. The old rabbi says, "I am dust and ashes." He also says, "The world was made for me." So humble are we, and so magnificent. See what your friends say if you put "We are dust and ashes" on your backpack, right above "The world was made for me." I've cited the favorite poem often, but never have I felt its force the way I feel it now. It's from Denise Levertoff's collection, Candles in Babylon. Earlier, I wrote that we are now both the ark and the flood, the exiled and the exilers. Babylon is where we've exiled ourselves. Babylon is us. But Levertoff's poem itself is beginners. How apt is that for remappers and remakers? The poet's words, like the prophet's, are for you. Note the use of love, imagine, hope, justice, and mercy in the very first lines. They rise to the top like heavy cream for such a time as this. Beginners. But we have only begun to love the earth. We have only begun to imagine the fullness of life. How can we tire of hope? So much is in bud. How can desire fail? We have only begun to imagine justice and mercy, only begun to envision how it might be to live as siblings with beast and flower, not as oppressors. Surely our river cannot be hastening into the sea of non-being. Surely it cannot drag in the silt all that is innocent. Not yet, not yet. There is too much broken that must be mended, too much hurt that we have done to each other that cannot yet be forgiven. We have only begun to know the power that is in us if we would join our solitudes in the communion of struggle. So much is unfolding that must complete its gesture. So much is in bud. Now add Niebuhr's wisdom to Levertoff's inspiration with this preface. This preface is mine. Your worst tragedy as beginners would be to have no sense of tragedy. Lacking its realism and lacking action, you will fall into despair. Grab hold of the saving alternative, namely fragments that reflect the whole. Here are Reinhold Niebuhr. Nothing that is worth doing can be achieved in our lifetime. Therefore, we must be saved by hope. Nothing which is true or beautiful or good makes complete sense in any immediate context of history. Therefore, we must be saved by faith. Nothing we do, however virtuous, can be accomplished alone. Therefore, we are saved by love. And no virtuous act is quite as virtuous from the standpoint of our friend or foe as it is from our standpoint. Therefore, we must be saved by the final form of love, which is forgiveness. Above all, keep saying yes to life in spite of everything. And keep saying, I love you so much. Don't forget the birds or your carrots. With hovering love, Grandma and Grandpa. P.S. I have a request. If by the time you read this as young men, I am dead, as dead I well may be, would you too join your mother's lovely voice, perhaps your dad's too, at my memorial service? And would you sing not just any song, rather this one, where your living and my dying meet in a love that casts out fear and is stronger than death. It even bridges geological epochs. In all our living, we belong to God. And in our dying, we are still with God. So whether living or whether dying, we belong to God. We belong to God. Okay, that's a taste of the letters. You can go to Larry Wrights. Oh, that isn't up here. LarryWrights.info for what others have thought about the letters, said about them. I'm glad for the time that you gave me to join you tonight, and turn it back to Bill to pick up the conversation.
Thank you very much, Larry. You have laid before us a wonderful feast of opportunity, and we will have time to nibble a bit on this. So I want to go back to your image and your purpose of writing love letters, because you point to the power of love in several ways. You said, telling your grandchildren that love has the power to bring both happiness and heartbreak. But you write, most importantly, love builds community.
Yeah.
So what kinds of communities are needed for such a sustainable future? And how do we build such communities? And in a couple of weeks, we as a community will be gathering here for our Earth Fest. We're anticipating a good turnout. And wondering, how is it that this community of River Falls, about 17,000 people, what kinds of steps do you think that we can and should take as a community? How do we build a community for our sustainable future here?
Yeah, thanks. I should have read another letter. I talk in one of the letters about sustainable community, and say that these are the kinds of communities that are, on the one hand, havens. People feel safe in them. People feel comfortable in them. People feel community itself in them. So they're havens in a tough world where there are assaults on all of us from every side, and we create a good bit of them now with global warming. But a sustainable community is a haven. That's one dimension. It's also a community where you kind of wake up in the morning to practice the future. You are willing to take risks together to try something that will work out better than maybe it has in the past, or maybe you're asked to make bigger changes in your own lives than you have in the past. That is where we are. So this haven is a haven where people will also risk trying something else. I said, don't accept the advice of those who say never try anything the first time around. This is where you try things the first time around. And I have a friend here in Santa Fe, Rabbi Nahum Ward-Lev, who says that the prophets' notion of community is also one where you speak clearly about what it is that has brought you to a place that makes for unsustainability. Mm-hmm. So there's a moral dimension of telling the truth, and it's also a confession on our part that what we have done has not worked out the way we thought it would, even though we thought, as I said, that what was good for us, for the world, is not. It did not turn out to be good for the world. Now I'm just going to share my own personal view. I think the kind of economy from which I and you and millions, actually billions of others have benefited enormously is ironically the kind of economy that now brings us global warming and catastrophe. You can't have a human economy, a growing human economy that as an extraction community, an economy of extraction, and it's now extractive capitalism, does not mesh with the most important economy, which is the planet's. Mm-hmm. Nature's economy has to give us the clues, and you have to be able to regenerate the quality of water, the quality of air that nature provides on its own. So we're looking, I'm trying to say, in our efforts at sustainable community for a different kind of economy than one that is focused in the short term and on profit for humans and human well-being only. That's an economy that now is destructive. Modernity has actually turned out to be destructive of the planet. Now that's too long an answer. A haven, mm-hmm. A place where risk is taken by people who enjoy working together for alternatives, and a place where there's a moral critique of our economy and our present arrangements.
Well, in the midst of community, we are still a group of single human beings. And so the question of who am I and who are we come to the fore, I think. And so the question is asked, what is the nature of human nature? And you go on to say that being is by nature relational.
Yeah.
And so in so many ways, our world, our nation, maybe even our little community of River Falls, we lose sight of the relational part of that, that we are all fellow citizens on this planet.
Yeah.
And you go on to say that being is by nature relational, suggesting that everything is connected. And at one point you quoted the poet who said, "You cannot disturb a flower without troubling a star."
Yeah.
And the interconnectedness, the interdependence, the mutuality that is implied for us as human beings, how is it that we have lost sight of the connectedness of all of us, just to be human beings together? And how do we take steps to reconnect, to understand how we are connected and make good use of that?
Yeah. Well, I think you're already doing it in your efforts at sustainability when you're doing it and as you're doing it together. But you know that we're all up against a deeply US American culture in which it's largely assumed that the individual is the basic unit of human reality.
Mm-hmm.
And it fails to see that none of us are who we are except as social creatures. And I try to say in the book that relationship is so vital because we are by nature social creatures. And we are also eco-social creatures. We cannot be human apart from the ecosystems that are inside of us. I mean, you know, we only have about 7% of our cells are uniquely human. We're mostly bacteria. We're mostly microbes. And so I write a letter about the kindness of microbial strangers. We wouldn't be alive for minutes longer if all of the microbes in our body went on strike and said, we're not being you anymore. So we're eco-social, and now we're geosocial creatures. We're creatures of Earth and not anywhere else. And so relationships are what's critical, but it's a relationship with the whole community of life. I once gave the students in one of my classes the assignment to write their own obituaries. And I was shocked because this was in the 80s and 90s when everyone was going to be an entrepreneurial individual. And self-care was a big theme, as well as self-promotion, a big theme. And I expected that to show up in the obituaries, and I was shocked. All of them talked about how they wanted to be remembered. I said, write this from the moment, the last moment of your life, looking backwards, and write it, give the words to somebody else because you won't have any more. So what do you want people to say about you? And not a one of them said, you know, I made more money than anybody else in my class and got to the top of the ladder and had the biggest yacht. You should have seen it. Every one of them talked about giving back or wanting to be remembered as a good friend or wanting to be remembered as a good family member, a loving husband or wife and father, a favorite uncle, favorite grandma or grandpa, tutored people in the community. It was all about being related. And so I think that's so deep within us. But I think that very notion fights a kind of notion of American notion of the individual consumer as as the main human figure.
I volunteer at a local elementary school here in River Falls on Tuesdays and helping with reading. And I walked into the 4th grade class about 2 weeks ago, and they were in the midst of a really raucous discussion about climate change. And there were a number of these 4th graders. I mean, their commitment to that was stellar and impressive. And that's part of the curriculum here. And but you're inviting your youngest grandchildren to enter into this discussion. And I'm so excited to see 4th graders and children of all ages entering into that. So as a community, we need to pay attention to the youngest ones and to invite them into the conversation at every moment.
I'm just going to interrupt, Bill, just to say that, the kids know what kind of world they're probably a part of for all of their lives. And sometimes, and they have that kind of childhood imagination and energy to want to do something about it. And that's why I said at the end of the letter I read, you know, dream big, and lace it with a bit of utopia.
Mhm.
Don't give up your idealism. Don't give up your realism. The thing that bothers me now is that one of the large studies polls recently, not with fourth graders, but with juniors and seniors in high school, over half of them said they felt they were doomed.
Mm.
I mean, they are just very, some of them angry about the fact that we're handing them this kind of world about which they had no say.
Mhm.
You know, now they have to live with the consequences. So attend to the young, listen to the young,
Mhm.
ask what they want from us. Bill McKibben has started a new organization called Third Act. The first act was you growing up, and the second act was your career. The third act was you in your retirement, working now for the young and asking them
Mhm.
what you should be doing.
Yeah. I wonder, Kim, is there a question that has surfaced from our viewing community that they would like to ask?
Not yet.
Yeah.
You suggested that as we look into our uncertain future, that there are three options. One is we just continue as we are now living with our planet. The second option may be the collapse of that route. And the third is a new mode of living, to live in relationship with the whole community of life. And I see the phrase often, think globally, but act locally.
Yeah.
And how do we continue to develop this new mode of living? You talk about forgiveness as that final or best gift of love.
Yeah.
How-
Well, yeah. I just think it's so daunting because it's so comprehensive what we need to take on. And in the second to the last letter, I didn't read any part of it. It's entitled Becoming Good Ancestors. And there I say, I can't, as grandpa, tell you, Eduardo and Martine, how you should live your life. You'll be making those decisions in a world that, I only knew a bit. And it's not my world. What I can tell you are the elements that you will have to pay close attention to and think about putting together as a way of life. The first one in the list, did not necessarily rank order, is cosmology. How do you view the world?
Mhm.
And how do you take it in, and then how do you see it? Your worldview or your gaze, if you will. And then I simply suggest, it should be a cosmology that starts with the whole community of life and doesn't segregate humans or separate humans from the rest of nature, because we can never be separate from the rest of nature. We are nature, nature is us. So attend to your cosmology and attend to, I'm going to look myself at the elements to pay attention to. Attend to community. And as I've already repeated often enough, that's a community that includes us in every single way, but goes beyond us and includes the whole community of life. Because again, there's a kind of deep togetherness that holds things together, and we're a part of it. Community. The third is ethics. And I don't know everybody knows, but the root in Greece for ecology, economy, and ecumenics is oikos. That's the Greek for household.
Mhm.
The planet is a single household.
Mhm.
And economy, ecology, and, and ecumenics, the whole inhabited earth together, all need to mesh. So ethics as this kind of just example of paying attention to what is right, good, and beautiful, and working for it is a third element. Cosmology, communion, or community, and ethics, and ritual. Rituals are the core of every community's life. We hardly live a day without ritual. It may just be shaking a hand
Sure.
or opening a door and welcoming people in. But from the time we're born, baby gets a name, gets dedicated in one way or another until the time we die. We live ritualized life. So, what are the rituals that are appropriate to the Anthropocene,
Mhm.
the whole community of life? Should we be having funerals for dying and dead coral reefs,
Yes.
or birthday parties
Mhm.
for successful newborns of other species? So think about what are the rituals that are the skeleton, really, of
Mhm.
a community. Rituals distill meanings
Mhm.
in ways that are more powerful than words. So talking about love isn't nearly as loving as loving itself. In some, and then there's an inner journey, and that is an, an inner life that connects with the outer life. And I said, if you tried to imagine life and had nothing but the surface of the moon for your imagination, where would you find a word? And what would your imagination hold? You couldn't even imagine anything but a bare surface. You have sun and some stars and nothing else.
Mhm.
It's so your inner life is deeply, deeply connected to your outer life and your outer journey, and so your inner journey needs to reflect that kind of thing, and then nurture how you live. Um, yeah,
We're back to this connectedness once again.
yeah,
Everything, the interdependence of us with each other and with nature and with the created world that we inhabit and that we're working and praying and using our imagination to take healthy, good steps forward.
yeah. But it's all I'm trying to emphasize is that it covers a range of things which are both interior and exterior.
Yes.
And so much of our thinking about sustainability is one in which we put ourselves in the position of what we call stewards, being good stewards, where we imagine our reality as the subject acting upon something else as the object.
Mm-hmm.
It's subject to object rather than subject to subject in a reciprocal, mutual relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying don't be good stewards.
Yeah.
I'm saying that our images of stewardship need to be ones in which we understand mutuality and reciprocity with that which we care for and which cares for us. Our pastor is very good about saying she doesn't like the phrase care for creation a whole lot unless it starts with the fact that creation cares for us.
Yes.
Every day with every breath we take,
Mm-hmm.
and every million molecules of water we take with every sip. So that it's subject to subject. It's creation caring for us and us caring for creation as a mutual and reciprocal relationship.
Good. I think that's a wonderful way to end our conversation. Thank you so much for the gift of your writing, your wisdom, your scholarship, and your encouragement for us to dream and act boldly as individuals and as a community. So thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks to all of you.
Right. Good. One final note, looking ahead, our next speaker will be on April 26th, Kyle White, presenting the social, cultural, environmental, and economic importance of freshwater access and protection from a traditional ecological knowledge perspective. So April 26th. So we'll bid everyone good evening. Thanks again, Larry. Good night.
Good night.